I'd like to now bring up our next speaker, Ms. Catalina Byrd, who is a political strategist, a communications consultant, and a former candidate for mayor of Baltimore. Ms. Byrd is very active in the community and has made a difference in bringing everyone's attention to this important issue. Ms. Byrd.
I might be the only person here today that's not from your district, but has lots of Bobby Zirkin stories to tell. So funny how the universe works. My grandmother had a saying that God doesn't make any mistakes. So I'm scrolling through Facebook a couple of days ago, and I see David's picture that he's going to be here today. And I tweeted him about it because I follow David. I was in Sonia's Baltimore Rising documentary. I've had a chance to sit on some boards with him. We knew Donnie Andrews together. And I've never seen David come out publicly for a candidate. I've seen him troll candidates on Twitter, but I've never actually seen him use his name and his status to support someone, so it caught my attention. And I just tweeted him about it. And Evan, who's followed me for some years now, DM'd me and said, hey, do you want to come too? Because I know that Bobby's killed your DV bill a few times. And I said, sure. Me speak with David, I'm not, on the same level, but hey, why not? And so that's how we ended up here today. And then I'm a guest chef this weekend at an event, so I was trying to figure out what to wear that was presentable to be a guest speaker, but I can still go cooking. And I have inadvertently gotten dressed in the campaign colors. So clearly all of this is meant to be in Kismet. Obviously, I'm not from the district. I've been in campaigns. I was just teasing to Nia and to Dana that I've done Mark Steiner's show with Doug a number of times and never actually met him. So today was my first time actually getting to see what my colleague looked like. So that was cool. I'd like to acknowledge in the back Delegate Angela Angel from Prince George's County, District 25. She came up and joined me today because she's who I do the DV legislation with. And 3 years ago, when I was asked to come be a domestic violence advocate, I wasn't invited because the person invited me knew I was a survivor. I was invited because of being on air on radio and television for so many years in Baltimore and the DMV area that they thought I would be able to bring some attention to this because she was a first-term delegate and she was kind of getting treated as rookies get treated down there in Annapolis and being shoved in drawers and pushed to the side. But it gave me an opportunity to tell my story. And so when I saw this legislation, it was my own story. It was my own personal story. It was how I almost was taken from my children. And it is that for 3 years, we've been trying to expand the definition of abuse to include malicious destruction of property and harassment to get protective orders. And it would seem like a simple thing, right? The person who's coming and busting out your windows or slashing your tires, you should be able to get a protective order. But that's not the case here in Maryland. There's no box to check. And so the first session, I'd not been in Annapolis in many years. My mom was Tiger Davis's chief of staff when I was younger. So I'd been a kid since the last time I'd been down there. I'd primarily operate in Baltimore. In the first session, we thought we were making headway, and you get to that crossover week, as we all know, and if it doesn't go to Bobby's committee to die, it goes to the House Judiciary Committee to die, and it doesn't cross over at all. And so that's what happened the first session. I was like, okay, we have a strategy, we have a plan, we're gonna come back next session. And I have video of Bobby looking me in my eye and committing to working with us on the language to ensure that we got it past the next session. And we use that video every year because I don't know about you, but I don't take kindly to people lying to me. I know I'm in politics, that probably sounds insane, but I do believe that there is such a thing as people doing what they say they're gonna do and standing for what's right. And he did not do that. And so when I brought it to his attention, that following session, he wasn't even paying attention. He was in his iPad and he heard his name and he looked up and I said, you made a commitment to me, so why am I here again? I have things to do in Baltimore. Why did I have to come all the way to Annapolis? And he left. He left the room. He didn't answer the question. And that particular time, it did cross over. And instead of calling it for a vote on Sine Die, he just let it sit. And then he hid from me. Now, Bobby and I about the same height, right? So I don't really feel like I'm the type of person that you have to hide from. I wasn't gonna punch the guy. I was angry, but I can't be here advocating against abuse and abusing someone. So I was thinking with the best parts of my brain, but he never even came out into the hallway. He left the State House through the tunnel. And when I saw him again, he was at a party with a drink in his hand and told me, I said, what happened? I said, you told me that we would work on this language. You told me that you'd call it for a vote, that you were gonna let us do what we do. And he said to me, it slipped my mind.
Mm.
So this past session, once again, he knew we were coming, organized. He says, organized, we were coming back again. So this session, he and what is kind of essentially his delegate counterpart, Delegate Kathleen DeMay in Montgomery County, filed a bill that's almost exact to ours. The only difference is that it has a revenge porn piece in it, but it's claiming to be a domestic violence bill. And then when it crossed over, they struck out all the language that had to do with the things that we've been fighting for, which is to increase this definition so that women can get protective orders. I don't know what you know about the statistics of domestic violence, but when you're trying to leave is the most dangerous time. And that's when you see the instances when the women and the children are killed because there's nothing that they can do. And so when they struck out all of our language, what they passed this past session was essentially a revenge porn bill. But the person who's posting your nudes is not likely to be the same person who would slash your tires, bust your windows, or commit a violence to you or your children. That's just, the data proves it. We know it. Baltimore is second to Prince George's County in domestic violence incidents and deaths. And so every time we play personality politics in Annapolis with this very important issue, we are putting other lives at risk and other families at risk. And so I really appreciate, I don't know Sheldon, I can't speak of him like Doug did, but I've known Evan for a while, have a lot of respect for David, and I did some due diligence in the time since I was invited here, and have no problem saying that if I lived in your district, I'd vote for you. But I'll help you any way that I can. I got a lot of battles to fight in Baltimore still. But if I could, I would, and I'll continue to support you in any way I can, because the cause that I'm fighting for is one that is near and dear to my heart, because it is my own personal story. So I appreciate your invite today. And one other thing, that crime bill he did this session, though it was not what I worked on, I'm on the Community Oversight Task Force in Baltimore for the consent decree. It's very similar to the zero tolerance that Martin O'Malley brought us. That is why we are under a consent decree. And so while I was fighting for the DV legislation, other organizations like LBS, Out for Justice, and Job Opportunities Task Force were fighting him and eventually won on the crime bill. But zero tolerance and just locking people up for the sake of locking them up and not bringing resources to a community is not a strategy that builds community and makes sustainable community. So I wish you all the best, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Catalina. We appreciate that.